Welcome to the Amazon Legends podcast, where we have real stories about making it big on Amazon. Our guests are CEOs of large companies and entrepreneurs who became powerful sellers, also experts specializing in helping sellers, and both former and current Amazon employees who will give us an insight from behind the scenes. Here's your host, Nick Urison.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Amazon Legends. My next guest today is someone who fell into her current job totally by accident. She's used to wearing many hats. A lot gets dumped on her, and she's been working in this family business, well-established over the past for 12 years, and she's soon to be the mother of 3. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Jessica Beck. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So out of your busy time dealing with kids and your business wearing your so many hats, it's great to have you here. So tell me something you're doing really well right now, because when we talked, you told me something that was very interesting. So tell me what that is.
Yeah, something we've worked on. I mean, it's been a learning process for us, but we have worked really hard at controlling the market for our brand. And I feel like we're doing a really good job of that.
So controlling the market is a big word. So what do you mean by controlling the market?
Yeah, we started direct to consumer and had that mentality. But when we switched to wholesale and working through stores, we started seeing a lot of other sellers would show up on Amazon, and that would drive our price down. And we kind of had to learn to problem solve that process. There wasn't a whole lot for us we had to learn as we went, I guess, learn trial by error there. But
So share with us some of the things that you had to do.
Yeah. The first step for us is starting at the source. So not attacking Amazon first, but looking at our distribution, the stores. We do direct distribution, and we also work with distributors. And so one of the first things we did was talk with those distributors and say, listen, this isn't great for either one of us, because if they drive our price down, then the stores can't keep them in stock and they're not going to order anymore. So our distributors that we work with make it very clear to the stores that they sell to, that we would prefer they don't sell on third-party sites like Amazon. They're welcome to sell on their own website. We have no problem with that. We're excited about that, right? It's good for them. So that was really the first step for us. And then we address other sellers as they show up and as we find them. And there's a few different things we do, but we start talking about Amazon and how we can work with the sellers there. So
as far as your product, you sell games, right? Tell us a little bit about quickly what kind of products you sell.
Yeah, we sell family card games. We kind of encompass the whole process beginning to end. So we design the gameplay, and we have an illustrator who does the artwork, and then we work with a printer in Poland. So our product is definitely a unique, we have trademarks on our games, right? So it's not like someone is selling something close. It's either it's our game or it's not. So yeah, it's a really fun thing to be part of, and we love seeing the growth there, but working with that has been a trick.
So you have a supply chain where you have some accounts that you supply directly, and these are retailers, I assume. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Brick and mortar as well as online, or just brick and mortar?
Yeah. So most of the stores that buy from us are brick and mortar. Some have their own website, and we absolutely allow them to sell on their own website. We have our own website now. That's actually recent development. So we sell, it's a Shopify website, and then we sell on Amazon. Amazon has just been amazing for us from the beginning. And so we go through them as well. And then we have distributors who will sell to stores similarly, right? They can have their own website or not.
So when you sign up a direct account, so I want to just dissect the whole situation, because there are other companies who are in the same position as you are. They have a supply chain, and the next thing is they have their resellers competing against them, or they are competing against their resellers, which doesn't really look good. So not to mention the price goes down. So with your direct accounts, when they come on board, do you get them to sign a disclosure that they will not sell on Amazon, or they are free to sell on Amazon, or do you have anything pertaining to Amazon operation?
Yeah, it's not necessarily a legal form, but part of the agreement when we first talk to a new store is we tell them we don't allow third-party sites. If we find that you are selling on a third party, we won't distribute with you, or we won't distribute to you anymore. And we have had very little negative feedback. Honestly, they're excited that we're protecting the price because it protects them in the long run too. So there's only been a couple of them that have an issue with that, but most people are super excited to have that protection for them as well.
So bottom line, somebody comes on board with you as a direct account, they're not allowed to sell on Amazon.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very important. I mean, you did the smart thing because it's a big deal. So now is the second layer. You also have distributors who then distribute for you to other retailers, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the problem is. I hear, because that you have no control over anybody. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so the first step was we talked with the distributors very openly about that. And we're a small family business, we're growing and it's great, but I feel like at this level, we can have very personal conversations with them. And so we've told them, you know, this is why we're doing it. It's not that we're trying to lessen your sales. And their sales team informs the stores that they buy or that come to the distributors to buy games. They inform them not to sell on Amazon. We have had issues where they still do. There was one distributor, and I can't even remember the name, but they didn't respect that so well, and we just don't distribute with them anymore. So that's kind of what we've chosen to do. We've worked through that way. And so they inform every store that they shouldn't be selling on Amazon.
So you don't supply the distributor anymore, or you don't supply you stop them from supplying the individual reseller? Which one?
So it depends. We worked with one distributor and we stopped working with them altogether because there were other issues as well, but one of the things they didn't do was respect that understanding. Typically, it's not a distributor's. I mean, legally, any store could buy and sell on Amazon. There's nothing legally they're doing wrong. And there's ways that they can hide who they are. So we don't always know what store is really selling. But if we can nail it down, the first step that we do is contact the distributor and make sure that their sales team is doing that. And usually they are. And then we contact the store and we work with the store on that. And if they just continue to do it, or they straight up tell us they want to sell on Amazon, then we ask the distributor, if it's through the distributor, we ask them to sell to that store anymore. So our distributors, we love them. They work really well with us on that. And so we don't have too much of an issue anymore, to be honest with you.
Okay. So, I mean, this is a big challenge because you're talking about a gray market, and the gray market is very hard to control. You never know. And in America, as long as somebody has a legitimate commercial invoice, they can buy anything, they can sell it anywhere, anytime, at any price they want. You cannot say anything. You can, depending on the size of your company, and you have to be humongous for that. You can get into these arrangements with Amazon, where Amazon will enforce it. They won't even let anybody list the product. But unless you're big, that's not an option. So there really is no recourse for you. I mean, that's the whole, I guess, in the operation, where somebody buys from a distributor and then they resell it to somebody that the distributor doesn't know anything about. You have no idea where the merchandise came from, and then they end up on Amazon and you are competing against them. So what do you have situations like that, and what do you do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the first thing we tried to do is help the distributor understand why it's really important, because in the end, distributors will get run out of business if it works that way. I mean, there's no point for them to continue to distribute to stores if the stores can't sell it because our price is too low. So that was one of the things we did but it does still happen. One of my early jobs in the company was to just watch and see when other sellers show up. You can kind of watch and see, like I can add one to my cart and see how many they have, right? If they only have one copy, for us in our company, most of the time it's they bought it at Goodwill, right? And they're just reselling it. But that's not always the case. If they have a lot of them, usually because we were so small, we could go back and find who ordered a lot of games and then have a conversation with them. As we've grown, that's harder. So if they only have a few copies, we just don't even reach out to them. If they have a lot, we tend to send them a message, and it's very politely worded. We're not accusational or rude, and the response has been very positive. And oftentimes what we do is we ask, what we're really trying to figure out is where you got the games. If it came directly from us, did it come from a distributor? This is our policy, and we just want to make sure that's being conveyed. And most people respond really positive, and they say, yeah, this is our store. We didn't realize that was an agreement because we got it from this distributor, and that salesperson didn't make that clear. And so we've worked with them. Sometimes they don't respond, and there's nothing you can really, there's nothing you can really do about that. But most of the response has been very positive, and the stores really like working with us there. So in our experience, that's worked really well.
Yeah. So you know what you have done? You have, with this kind of practice, you have actually proven Einstein's biggest invention, which is not relativity theory that the whole world knows about.
Yeah.
You know what that is?
No.
He actually figured this out, and he put that out there as his biggest accomplishment. People don't know about it, but if you dig into it, that's what you find. His theory is universe is friendly. So
yes.
So that's what you had found out. So so that's great. Now I'm gonna tell you one thing which unfortunately happens. As you scale your operation and it's growing and growing all the time, not everything is gonna be friendly, and sometimes the smallest thing will really actually cause a big problem. You may bring out a new product, and then suddenly it ends up selling at a real low price, and then nobody wants to carry it, it tarnishes or whatever. So the real methodical way to deal with this is to actually monitor your buy box. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm sure you've heard there are systems out there where you have to monitor the buy box. You mentioned a scenario which is perfectly understandable. People buy, they have 1Zs, 2Zs, they bought something somewhere. They don't really matter because once it's sold, then it's done. So you really cannot take action on everybody. But technology helps this situation, and that is something that that people, the companies that I work with, they employ that technology where they're constantly monitoring the buy box. And as soon as the buy box drops below X% that they want, then clearly somebody else is stepping in, and they want to know who that is. So that's something. Now, this is a big issue for companies with supply chain. So now, tell me about your policy. So it's one thing to say, okay, you can sell to some of your resellers on Amazon, but then the next thing is, you are competing against them, right? So how do they take that?
Like I said, most of the time it'd be positive because, first of all, I love what you said about Einstein, right? The universe is for the most part, a very positive place. And we're a family company, and we've always driven that way. We try to work with relationships more than just the product we're trying to get out from point A to point B. And so, we had one guy respond early on, and he said, "Thank you so much for your kindly worded message." He goes, "I resell a lot of things, and usually people are threatening to sue if they send us a message, or they're really angry." And he really appreciated that. So we tried to approach it that way. Some people, again, I think the most typical response, if they're not going to work with us, is they just don't respond. There's not a whole lot of engagement. And then we've had some stores that are kind of, I would call them repeat offenders, right? They sell, we contact them, they say they'll stop, they do it again. And we know them. And I think what we have found, we don't, first of all, it's not one and done, right? It's not one strike and you're out, but we give them time to work through that. And sometimes what happens is they have new management come in and that management says, why aren't we selling this on Amazon? And they put it on. And then, so again, when I'm working with them, the response is typically positive because we work with a lot of brick and mortar mom and pop stores and they want what we want too. And it's mostly protection of the price. It's not about, we don't want you to sell our game. We make money every time they sell a game. We understand that. So we're not approaching it as you're cutting us out. But if we can't control that and we give that freedom, then it ends up hurting them in the long run too.
So, but how about those who don't mind? They are selling on Amazon. So now they are on Amazon.
Yeah.
You are also selling on Amazon directly. So now it's one product, right? So both of you are on the same product. You are competing against each other. So how do you deal with that situation?
Most of the time, again, those are typically the people that don't respond and I don't know who they are. When we were small enough, we could see if they have 100 copies, that was a big order for us. And so we could go find what store it was and reach out to them that way.
Hold on a minute. So what you are telling me is the only authorized seller on Amazon is you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that makes, because I was going by the premise that you may have a handful of sellers, your resellers also sell on Amazon, but you don't allow that at all. Earlier you said they have to sign an agreement, but sometimes companies have, one or two favorite, and then, they do a lot of business and the company comes with conditions. Look, this is something that, we also want to sell on Amazon. It's a big market. And you have to really agree because they are a big customer. So you never had a situation like that, right?
No, we've had some stores that will ask several times, like, can we please? And we just don't allow it, period. And we really haven't had a ton of negative issue. We take care of our accounts in other ways. Again, we really focus on that relationship. So because we sell card games, we provide them lots of demo copies. If all of the employees want to play it, we know that that's how it will sell best. And so we are already in good faith in other ways. And so we don't typically have too much resistance to that. So we are the only authorized seller on Amazon.
So in that case, I'm going to share one of my methods that actually protects you and allows your resellers or stores also to sell on Amazon without breaking any rules. You want to know what that is?
I'd love it.
And it also helps you push your sales up. So this is the way it goes. So first of all, it's a policy. There has to be an umbrella policy that says you're not allowed to sell on Amazon, which you already have. So however, then what you do is you handpick some of those accounts that do really well with you. And then you can approach them and say, listen, we have a new policy and we are going to allow you to sell on Amazon if you want. You have to tell us you will or not, but we looked at our numbers and you qualify for this. However, you must have a minimum order. That's how you push your sales up. Because when you sell on Amazon, your orders will go up. So you have to place a minimum order on regular basis. And the minute that you drop, you are no longer on Amazon. In addition, it's not going to be for all our items. It's going to be a select number of items. So we are going to allow you to sell a select number of SKUs on Amazon, and we are not going to compete against you. We won't be in the buy box. So you do that with a handful of 2 or 3 sellers, not too many, 2 or 3 sellers. So now what's happening is they are now opening up a whole new market. They can compete between each other on the buy box. You're not there because you're going to kill them if you ever sell. They know you're not going to be there. And at the same time, they are upping the orders that they have with you, first of all, it's natural because they have a new channel. But now you can have much better way of projecting how much business they're going to do, your production and everything else. So that is usually the recommendation I have. And at some point you can control. So you really have to control which SKUs you're going to sell, which SKUs you're not going to sell. And then you can open up to all more SKUs. As you have new SKUs added, I'm sure you have new games coming out. Obviously, you are the only one. So that way you have the best of both worlds. You are selling on Amazon directly. You also have your resellers selling on Amazon, but nobody's competing with anybody.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We've never tried that before. Again, our big accounts typically aren't the ones who really care.
Yeah.
It's like these guys that make a lot of money that way. But that's not a terrible idea, especially when you limit the SKUs. And you're totally right. We keep having new games come out. So that will be, if we try that, that's something that we'd have to adapt to as we move forward as well.
Yeah. Because that's, Amazon is a big channel. And so for some companies, maybe a big turnoff. There are, and as you know, retail business is constantly changing. So therefore you have people embracing new technologies, new way of selling direct to consumer. And, when you cut off the online aspect of it, and Amazon is a big piece, it's really not as attractive as saying, look, yeah, sure, we can offer you online. This way, you can even invite people who will exclusively sell online, because then they have to place the minimum order. And you decide what that is. So it's something that some of my clients do. I came up with this idea. It's not original to me. Some companies do it, but I kind of modified it a little bit in terms of how I actually practice it. And so it seems to work. Now, I have another situation where you have somebody that you approached and they are selling, they're not authorized, and you have no idea where they are buying from. You cannot stop them. What do you do in that case?
Yeah. Most of the time, we'd just let it sell out. Eventually, it will. We don't have this often, but every now and then we have inventory issues, as everyone does, right? Getting it checked in takes too long. So when our inventory sells out, they end up taking that buy box and they get rid of it all, and then we're fine. I can only think of a handful of times that that's happened. Usually if they have more than 2 or 3 games, we either know where they came from or they respond to us. So that hasn't been an issue we've had to resolve a whole lot. And when it does, we just sell them out and then it's fine.
I mean, the numbers go up as you scale. So there's this is another practice that I've seen other manufacturers do, especially because when I was an Amazon seller, we were in beauty and personal care space. And, everybody is trying to copy fragrance and things like that. So I used to see this a lot. And there was especially one company, they had a hair product. And you know what they were doing? I'm not telling you to do this, but this is what and I actually spoke to the company. And they told us that, look, we know who is authorized to sell online. If we don't know, they are not authorized.
Yep.
Number one, as a seller, they are not authorized. Number two, if we are selling it online, we know it's an authentic product. If we know who is selling online, we also know it's authentic product. If we don't know who is selling, it is very likely that it's not an authentic product. It's a counterfeit. So what they used to do was they would simply file an IP infringement with Amazon brand registry and say, this seller is not authorized and we suspect the product is counterfeit. And as soon as you use those words, Amazon wants to protect the consumer, they would throw the seller out immediately. And they would have to confirm. So that's another way where you are kind of strong-arming somebody who is selling without authorization. And because you don't really know if they are making it up and they're selling it under your ASIN, right?
That reminds me, we had in the last couple of years, we actually had counterfeits that we could prove were counterfeit copies start showing up. And so our language when we tried to contact the store first changed, because again, if I can tell they only have 24 or 25 copies, more than likely that's a small store. If they have 200 copies, for us that's a lot, and more than likely they either have worked through a distributor who didn't talk to them, or they're counterfeit. And so our language changed a little bit. It's still not threatening to sue, but we will say, we suspect you're a counterfeit. Unless you tell us where you got the games, we're going to report you. So we give them a grace period, and then we do start reporting through Amazon. That it just doesn't happen very often as I'm processing that. But it does happen, and the actual counterfeits have been tricky. Lucky for us, we have trademarks on our titles. I mean, we had one guy, or I don't know if it's a guy, but another seller who was creating new listings. So it wasn't just a seller on our listing, but he was creating new ones. And we would report him for a trademark infringement, and he would just edit the main image on his listing and try again. And to the point that he renamed the game. and it was just kind of crazy, but it does happen. And that's actually another great way that I kind of forgot that we do that. But we just don't have the issue quite as often, because really early in our company, we've established this expectation and have a really good relationship with the people we work with.
So. I mean, my corporate attorney has a saying. He would say, well, when we are setting up an agreement, we look at the agreement and we find the smallest hole, and then we drive a truck through it. So in an operation that's a large scale, you have so many, you have resellers, you have distributors, and you're selling yourself. It's very hard to really do things manually. So that's why the technology comes in, so that you can track what's going on in the buy box, and then you have a process, letter 1, letter 2, letter 3. So you're doing it the right way. And also, the Einstein is right. So you've been on the good side, so you're receiving the good karma, so to speak. So, okay, so let's now step back and look at your operation. So tell me about your decision-making process. How did you end up on Amazon, and what did you take into consideration?
Yeah, I mean, our company started really probably 12 to 14 years ago. I can't remember when. It was 10 years ago that we started on Amazon. And I wasn't there at the very, very start of us deciding to go on Amazon. My father-in-law is the owner of the company, and that was a decision that he made. We did start direct to consumer pretty much right away. We didn't even touch wholesale. And Amazon was growing 10 years ago. It was not what it is today. And I think he saw that and just felt like we should I think that he recognized that where that was going, and felt like we needed to get in there. So
what I hear you say is there was a strategy here to start as a brand, because you're building a brand, right? So tell us what the brand is.
Yeah, our company is Grandpa Beck's Games. That's what it's called.
Okay, so your father-in-law says, okay, I'm going to build a brand called Grandpa Beck Games. And he decides that I'm not going to go look for wholesalers to put them on shelves in stores. I'm going to instead sell on the web, direct to consumer. That was the decision, right?
Even before that, he started at consumer shows. I think something that he recognized early on is the best way for games, especially card games, to sell is around the kitchen table. When people what's unique about our product is I can't buy a game and play it by myself. I have to have other people. So it has a built-in, marketing strategy almost on its own, where you really have to play with other people. And he knew the best way to demonstrate that is just to go and play with people. So he started with going to shows, to lots of consumer shows. And as that grew enough that he felt like, I think I could make some sales online, then he jumped online. And we only had 2 games at that point. So it was still it was a brand, but really he was pushing 1 or 2 games for a while before we really picked up.
Yeah. So Tell us a little bit about, so I mean, obviously he gave it some thought, and Amazon was the up and coming and the market share was growing. So, but I mean, he really deserves a lot of credit for making that decision, not to look for distributors, because they will, I mean, at best, even if they take your merchandise, first of all, you're not going to take the retail revenue, you're going to take the wholesale revenue, and you have to wait 90 days at the very least to get paid. So, he made the right decision. There are other things that come with it, and you have to carry inventory and blah blah blah. But you have to do that anyway. So, so what is your business model? Explain to us what makes sense for you selling on Amazon. FBA, FBM. What are the pros and cons, and whys and why nots?
When he started, it was definitely FBM. I remember my husband and I were dating at that point. We were teenagers, but I remember pallets of games just in his garage, and he's like, we're never going to sell out of these. Selling or 2 games a week was really exciting. And it's funny to look back at that. And now it's FBA easily. I manage our inventory to Amazon through our warehouse and make sure it's up to date. But fulfilling through Amazon for us has been 1,000,000% worth it at the scale that we're at now.
So
by a long shot.
Tell people the cons, so to speak, of FBM and why is it always better for FBA?
Yeah, there's definitely some pros to FBM. I would say that you can control your inventory, right? You know how much you have and you send it out, but we haven't done an FBM where we work through someone else fulfilling for us. So when he started, it was just him putting the game in a package and mailing it. And that's a lot more work. And when you do hire someone else, there's a lot more labor, and controlling that can be kind of funny. You don't always know that it's as good quality of control. And if there's a damaged game, you eat that more than you do with Amazon fulfilling. They take responsibility, right? If a game is damaged in shipping, they will refill that, or they work with us really well. So, that would be a lot of the negative to FBM for us. And FBA just kind of smooths that out. It makes it but there's definitely some cons to FBA as well, I would say. So
just to make it more clear, so first of all, FBM is very hard to scale because you're doing it yourself, right? So that's that. And the other thing is, you're responsible for all the performance issues when you do FBM, because if the carrier is late, you are penalized, right? Amazon doesn't care. And if you ship late for whatever reason, then you are penalized. But if it's FBA, Amazon takes full responsibility, right?
Yeah, if you look at seller feedback, right? If you go through that channel and watch that, right now, if anyone gets on and leaves us a 1-star feedback and it says it got here 2 days late, Amazon strikes that. We have 5 stars on our seller feedback because Amazon takes full responsibility of those things that are rocky. Whereas if we fulfilled ourselves, we would, every time there's a mistake in shipping, we would eat that and things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's a big deal. Frankly, I always give people 2 reasons why they must stick to FBA. One is FBA will scale 100%. FBM won't. Number 2, your ratings will not take a hit if there are issues with shipping. And there will be issues with shipping. There's no question. Why do you want to take that hit? So those 2 that justifies already, to go FBA fully. So tell us a little bit about what it takes to be successful on Amazon as a team. What roles do you have, and who fills those roles? And also, what do you outsource, and what do you do in-house? And what's a good idea? So keep in mind that people who are looking to do this, and they don't really know what's involved. So what would be your recommendation for someone who's looking to start this?
Yeah. First of all, I'd give them some hope, right? Grandpa Beck was a pilot by trade. I planned on being a stay-at-home mom. That's all I wanted to do. And the other guy that helps us a lot with Amazon, he was in marketing before, but hadn't really dealt with the supply chain at all. So you can do it. It's possible, would be the first thing I would say. But it's a lot of work. I think the hardest part as we've moved on. So we're growing, as I said. My father-in-law started, my brother-in-law helped him a little bit. And then I came in and ended up taking over pretty much the entire management of our Amazon account. And then as we've grown, we had another guy, his name is Chris, and he's awesome. And he has taken over Amazon Canada and Amazon UK because they have trickier things about them that it's hard to divide and manage US and those things. So he does those, and he helps me with some other tasks as well. But the trickiest part has been Amazon changes all the time. I mean, to keep up with those changes is really difficult. I would say probably maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we outsourced our Amazon advertising, and we work through a company who manages our PPC campaigns and things like that. And one of the things I love about working with them is that they also are better at keeping up to date with those changes. So they inform us of it, and sometimes we have them handle those things, and sometimes we do it, and we have a great relationship with them, and they understand that we like to try to be hands-on first. And they're great. And that is one thing that was really helpful, is having someone who can keep up with those and even just inform you of what's going on has been really, really helpful.
How about creating the listings, content, building the content? Whose job is that?
That used to be my brother-in-law, and he has started his own company and does his own things right now. So we kind of work together on that. There's not necessarily one person. For the most part, we have like our A+ content, we have a template and we plug it in, and eventually we'll have a graphic designer help us update that. But as far as the descriptions and things, we follow a similar template for all of our games and our products. And since we develop the games ourselves, we know them really well. And so like our new game that's coming out, my husband and I designed the gameplay for that game. So we'll help write those bullet points because we know what's really fun and exciting about it. So, yeah.
So do you ever do research for because as you know, on Amazon, the traffic will, especially if you're launching new listings, it will come from the title and the bullets. And of course, the pictures and the video, they are key, but the indexing takes place on the bullets and the title, and people do a lot of research to see which keywords to build into it. So do you ever do that before launching a listing or your existing listings?
We didn't do it a whole lot to begin with, to be honest. We were not good at that. But yes, we do some on our own, but a lot of times we turn to that advertising company we work with and ask them to kind of review that with us, and they help us a lot with that. So we probably need to improve there. That would be great advice on how to do that, but we don't do. Our biggest seller is a game called Cover Your Assets, and it is it's often in the top 100 card games on Amazon, and it's one of the highest rated ones. And so if we use that in the title, we say, gnoming around from the makers of Cover Your Assets, it's going to get hits. And so we use that a lot. But as far as other ones, we use what we know, we do a little bit of research, and we ask the advertising company to help us.
Yeah, I mean, things change. Amazon is constantly changing the algorithm because it's in their interest to change the algorithm, because once somebody figures out that they're going to work to that, so they keep changing the algorithm. So really, you ought to be changing your content regularly. And so, okay, one more question, and this is a gold. This is a gold question. So you described basically 2 roles. One role is create the listing. You're doing that. You've got a template, and then you consult with the PPC company. They give you advice, and then ultimately you launch the listing. The second piece is the PPC. That's the PPC company. All they can do is they can figure out what keywords will drive traffic, and therefore bid on those keywords, and then make sure that your campaign is running at optimum levels so that your ROI is good. However, one thing will put directly to your bottom line extra cash, and you don't have to spend extra money. You just have to know what's going on, and that is the conversion rate. How many conversions are taking place? Out of 100 people who ended up, PPC company draw traffic, they clicked, 100 people landed. How many are buying? So conversion rate of the listings, do you track that?
Yeah, that company tracks that more for us and then reports. We meet with them every week. And then we use Seller Central, and we kind of watch that. Not as closely as maybe we should, because that company does it for us. But yes, we watch conversion rates a lot.
Generally, they look at the conversion of the advertising. I'm talking about the conversion of the whole listing.
Yeah, they help us with both. So obviously they primarily focus on those PPC campaigns and do that, but they also pull up a big picture. And I'm sure people have heard about Amazon posts, right? Those are relatively new, and we look at conversion rates of that for different things as well. But yes, in general, they help us with all of that, and we do watch it. Yeah,
because the conversion rates of listings are only available in your business reports, and they're not available, and we can fetch it. And then, so really, it's a good idea to monitor that real time, because as you know, there are fluctuations, especially when you launch a new listing. So typically, for the listeners, I always advise companies, when they launch a new listing, stay very close to the conversion rate before you start your advertising campaign in a heavy way, because until you stop the leakage, spending money on clicks makes no sense. So staying close to that is really, because you increase the connection, the conversion just a few points, it's just extra cash.
So what would you suggest to someone who, if they have a new listing and their conversion rates are pretty bad, right?
Wow.
And how do they work with that, and how do they make that better?
Okay, so that's a very good question, and actually happens to be one of my favorites. So first of all, you need to be checking your conversion rate on daily basis. And then what you do is you take a notepad, or you open another file, or add another tab in file, whatever. It gets too complicated, but you simply write down the events. In other words, day one, listing launched, and then you let it go. You let it sit for a while, and then you monitor over several days, and then see how it is. And then you change a picture, you change title, you change bullet, whatever the case may be. But you don't change too many things at the same time. You change one thing at a time, and then make a note of it, and then you monitor the conversion rate again. So as you make those changes, you're going to see your conversion going up and down. There are other variables, of course. There are things you can control, things you cannot control. If you are making these changes heading into the shopping season, not a good idea, because you're going to get more traffic, and anything bad is going to get, basically marginalized. So that's one. The other thing is, tell your PPC company, I want you to do the same amount. In other words, you keep the advertising at the same level, so that you're creating the same conditions for the changes you are making. Because this is not about advertising. Like, the advertising company can easily go in and say, okay, shut that keyword down, or close this campaign, whatever. And it's instant, bang, it's there. But with conversion, listing conversion, it's always a lag. So you have to change the picture. Like, you may put a video, and then suddenly conversion goes up. So those are the things that you have to keep playing, back and forth. And the key in this is you have to be looking at the conversion on daily basis, because everything is changing daily. And by the way, you also don't want that alone. You want to be looking at the traffic. So you put the traffic in context, and it just gets a lot more convoluted, but that's how it is, because nothing is in isolation, right? It's always so many factors. So that's the way to deal with it.
Yeah, I love that you said that too, that we have to really watch all the factors, because sometimes things change, right? Our sales bump up at Easter, and Easter changes. when it, depending on the year, it'll be in March or it'll be in April. And so sometimes we're always shocked that our sales have gone up. So it's just important when you're doing those things to watch
I mean,
seasons and holidays and things.
Yeah, I tell you the data points to watch, that you must watch this as a company because it's your product, right? So, hey, I mean, you have a great relationship, but at the end of the day, you are a client. They are in it to make money, but this is your product. So you have to watch your conversions. You have to watch your buy box ratios. You have to watch your traffic, fluctuations, all the variances. These are things that you have to be looking at. Your average order value is key. Your average order value, all these data points that I mentioned, you have to look at it listing by listing, and you have to look at it as a composite rate of what is your composite average order value, what is your composite conversion rate, composite buy box ratio. These are things that will determine your success, and it's a big deal.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah, great. So now this is fine. So when I introduced you, I said I fell into this by accident. So tell us a little bit about Jessica Beck. So first of all, tell us where you live and where did you grow up, and tell us about how this came about.
Yeah, I grew up in the Seattle area, north of there, and my husband grew up in Seattle as well. And we met when we were teenagers and did a bunch of different things. But to sum it up, he decided to be a pilot like his dad was, and he was in pilot training. And my father-in-law has a basement apartment, and we rented that from them. And after a while, during that time is when the company really started growing. And before that, he had asked me to do, some emails here and there, or check on our feedback and make sure it's not, there's nothing we can't take care of. And during that time, things just really started picking up for us. And he said, well, how about you help me with shipments to Amazon and make sure that our inventory is good? And, there were just little things.
So let me ask, were you like it? Because to deal with Amazon, you really have to like tedious stuff, right? So everything is tedious. So were you like a nerd, or were you what were you like in school?
Yeah, I did FBLA. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but it's the Future Business Leaders of America. And I did like the weird, tedious competitions. I did, computer applications, and I went to nationals in that, and really enjoyed that in high school. And I would not today call myself a computer nerd because I have not kept up, but I used to be. And I felt like I could problem solve really easily. Growing up, my dad I would ask him a question, and he says, you need to learn how to Google it, because if you can use Google, you can answer any question. And really early on, I learned some of those skills of just problem solving. Even if it's not fun, I find it fun to take this issue that they've been working on for 3 years, and I can find a solution because other people have resolved it, guaranteed, one way or another. So that was kind of how that started, I guess, is because I liked to kind of get into those weird things.
So when you were back in high school, so were you one of those girls who, instead of going out with boys, work on a computer application, you chose a computer application? Were you one of those?
Not necessarily, but maybe sometimes. I wasn't awkward, but I didn't really care about the social life as much. I felt like I'm laying the ground for my future. And at that time, I wanted to have more career than what I grew into. And anyway, yeah, I guess maybe sometimes I would stay home and do homework and play around with different things. Yeah.
So somewhere along the line, so the business starts growing, and then you are being pulled into just giving a hand with email, this, that, the other. So were you at the same time looking for a job, or did you think that this is what I'm gonna do?
No, I had little babies at that time. Our oldest is 5. And when we moved in with him, again, I had done small email things, but when we'd moved in with him, he was 3 months old. So I was just taking care of the kids, and my husband was learning to fly, but I had time, and I was there, and I could see what they were going through. And I had in college, I never finished my degree, but when I was in college, I worked at the online support center and helped people apply for the school and do different things. And so in that role, I had learned some problem solving skills as well, and helping things get better. And I said, I can help you with some of this stuff if you want. And so
Whoa.
I didn't plan it to be a big thing. I just planned on helping out while we lived there at first. So
Cool.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your passions. What else do you do? I know you said you have babies, and you've got another one coming. That I'm sure between Amazon and kids, you have your hands full. But when you can have some free time, what are your passions? What do you like to do?
You know, it's going to sound like silly, but I really love playing games. Even if we did not own a game company or help run a game company, my husband and I mean, he's my best friend. He has been for years now, and we play games all the time. We like having other couples over and other families, and if we really have time, we're playing, because we just find it really, really fun. We like strategy. We like watching Survivor and, you know, shows like that where we get to see strategies evolve, and we find those to be really interesting. So
Great. Thank you, Jessica. So we cover a bunch of different areas of selling on Amazon, but your perspective is not a usual one. It's a common one if the company is established and they have a supply chain. So everything that you discussed is really valuable. So tell us about how people can find you, the company, as well as you, how they can reach out to you. Give us some of the contact information. We will obviously put this on our website as well as on YouTube when the episode is published. But give it to us how people can reach you.
yeah, our website is grandpabecksgames.com, and most of our contact information is there. So that's a great place to start for a catch-all. On social media is another, we do pretty good on there, keeping people informed of what we're doing. And my sister-in-law manages that. And so if you, for some reason, needed to reach me and couldn't find it, you could ask her. And then my email is jessica@grandpabecksgames.com. I'm always happy to talk to anybody with a question. And, you know, I have a LinkedIn. We kind of joked about that in preparing for this. It's not great because I didn't plan on doing this. And that's okay. But we're a big family, and we love to hear from people. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. And our website is a great place to catch all of the contact information.
Great. Thank you very much. And you've done great, by the way. There is nothing better than being authentic. And you are truly an authentic, hardworking person who fell into a job and doing very well.
Thank you. I think authentic is a great way to describe us. We are very real people.
Yes. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our episode. And thank you, Jessica, again. And see you all next time. And if you learned something and you laughed, share it with anybody else. And anybody wants to reach Jessica, she's given her contact information. And please go ahead and do that. And share this episode with anybody if you liked it. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Be sure and subscribe, rate, and review our show. And be sure and share an episode with a friend. And thank you so much for being with us today. We'll see you next week here on Amazon Legends.